Similarity between biomedical analogy and geopolitics system dynamics Part 2, number 1608, April 23, 2026, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, category, Biomedical System Dynamics, Geopolitics. Systems Modeling. Key insights. The most important refinement of this analogy is structural in nature. This means the focus is not on identifying which country corresponds to which specific human organ, but on understanding how the entire system is organized and how its components interact. The global geopolitical system should not be viewed as a single human body with centralized organs. Instead, it behaves as a distributed nonlinear system with multiple functional centers, redundant pathways, overlapping roles, and competing control signals. These characteristics solve flexibility and resilience, but they also introduce complexity and potential instability. This description implies that the global geopolitical system is far more complex than the human body. Through millions of years of evolution, the human body has developed a highly stabilized internal system. In contrast, human societal structures have existed for only a few thousand years and remain in a relatively early stage of development, with less stability and greater variability. Therefore, the correct question is not, which country is the heart, but rather, which regio contributes most to heart-like function. This shift in perspective moves the analysis from fixed identity to functional contribution. This distinction highlights a fundamental difference between centralized biological systems and distributed global systems. In the human body, organs are clearly defined and localized, each performing specific functions within a stable structure. In contrast, the global system distributes similar functions across multiple regions, where roles may overlap, shift over time, and interact dynamically. This comparison does not imply that academic disciplines such as history or political science are more difficult than medical science. Rather, it suggests that the global geopolitical system itself is inherently more complex, less stable, and less deterministic than the human body, making it more challenging to model and predict using precise, physics-based approaches. Conclusion: this is not a literal organ-to-country mapping, it is a functional decomposition of system behavior. In this work, I am essentially treating the Earth as a single, living organism. My functional mapping is intuitive, particularly the concept of multi-fluid transport. In medicine, we often focus primarily on blood, but in this geopolitical framework, global system health depends on the synchronized flow of energy, capital, and data. This exploratory analysis demonstrates that meaningful analogies can be drawn between global geopolitical systems and human biomedical systems when viewed through a physics and engineering framework. The purpose of this work is not to produce a perfect mapping, but to reveal structural similarities in how complex systems behave under flow, stress, and interaction. By reducing complexity to a small number of dominant functions and focusing on their interactions, it becomes possible to interpret global dynamics using the same principles applied in biomedical system modeling. This approach extends the application of deterministic, interaction-based thinking beyond medicine into broader system analysis, opening the possibility for future quantitative modeling of global stability. As discussed earlier, the human body is the result of millions of years of evolutionary refinement toward homeostasis. In contrast, global geopolitics remains in a relatively early stage of development. Analogous to infancy, it lacks the mature feedback mechanisms that prevent the human body from damaging its own organs during internal conflict. Perhaps the way a neonate recovers from a glucose load can offer mathematical insight into how a nation recovers from a financial shock. In both cases, the key issue is not only the magnitude of the disturbance, but also the recovery speed, system resilience, and the time required to return toward stability. Epilogue: this piece of writing may give the impression of an older man sitting quietly, with nothing else to do, reflecting and exploring ideas out of curiosity. In some sense, that feeling is not entirely wrong. However, this work comes from a genuine curiosity about comparing the global geopolitical system with the human physiological system. It may appear unusual, and I understand that it is not a conventional topic. Nevertheless, it represents an attempt to explore an unknown area of knowledge by relating it to concepts I have already learned and understood. That is the simple purpose of this writing. At the same time, this work brings together ideas that are usually kept separate. It connects biomedicine, physics, engineering, and geopolitics into a single framework. Instead of relying on stories or opinions, it focuses on how systems function, using concepts such as flow, signals, control, and transformation. The approach is based on daily observations and follows a consistent, step-by-step way of thinking to better understand complex systems. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.